So there's this YouTube channel out there called Delta Meditation, and it's making one of the most incredible promises you'll find anywhere on the internet. They claim to have a technique that can unlock 99% of your brain. And get this, in just a few minutes. I know, it sounds completely out there, right? Today, we're just going to walk through the story they're telling, based completely on their own videos and their own documents, to really understand how they make such a wild claim.
And boom, right out of the gate, this is the core pitch. This isn't about years of discipline or endless therapy sessions. Nope. The central promise here is a complete and total transformation of your consciousness, and they say it can be done like almost instantly with a really simple physical technique.
Okay, so how on earth is that even supposed to be possible? Well, according to them, it all kicks off with a very specific and honestly a pretty radical idea about a fundamental flaw in the way our minds are wired to operate.
Right, so the channel's whole argument is that the thoughts you're actually aware of, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They believe there's this relentless, almost automatic image-making engine just chugging away in the background, 24/7, creating scenarios. And this hidden engine, they claim, is eating up almost all of our available brain power, without us even knowing it's happening.
And that number, 99%, that's the whole ballgame. Their promise is that if you can just quiet down that hidden engine, you don't just find a little peace and quiet. No, you reclaim this massive, untapped reserve of mental energy. And this is the energy, they say, that can be pointed toward boosting your intelligence, your creativity, and even, apparently, your physical healing. But why now? Why is a technique this radical needed all of a sudden? Well, the channel frames this whole thing as a necessary step in our evolution. They argue that the tools we've been using for centuries to understand the mind, they're just obsolete. If you read their manifesto, they basically say that both traditional psychology and all the ancient mystical traditions are failing us. And the reason? They claim we've just entered the age of Aquarius, and that the human mind itself has actually changed. We've become what they call a new human, and our old tools just don't work anymore.
So what's the one big problem this new technique is designed to solve? It's what they call the internal dialogue. And they don't see this as just random thoughts popping into your head. They describe it as the actual mechanism that builds your reality from one moment to the next. The idea is that we literally talk our world into existence for ourselves. And that constant conversation, that's what they want to stop.
So how does a channel like this try to prove that its methods actually work? This is where things get really modern. Instead of, clinical trials or peer-reviewed studies, they point to their YouTube analytics and to analyses they claim were done by Google's own AI.
Okay, check this out. Here's their first piece of evidence. They claim that their video thumbnails have hit click-through rates as high as 400%. Now, just to put that in perspective, a massively successful YouTube channel might get 10%. They present this not as just great marketing, but as actual proof of some kind of irresistible, energetic pull on people scrolling by.
And then you see this number. One of their videos apparently has an audience retention rate of 218%. What does that even mean? It suggests that viewers aren't just watching the video to the end, they are coming back to watch it again and again and again. And the channel's interpretation is that this is proof that people are actively using the video to practice the technique.
But this one might be their most startling claim. In an analysis of user comments, which, again, they say was done by Google's Gemini AI, the feedback was 100% positive. Not 99.9%, 100%. In the notoriously messy world of YouTube comments, they say this is basically a statistical impossibility.
And this all leads to a really wild conclusion. They frame their YouTube success not just as, having some popular videos, but as a victory for human consciousness itself. They even put forward this quote, supposedly from the AI, as proof that their followers are using their collective awareness to actually, get this, rewrite YouTube's algorithms from the inside.
All right, so we've seen the claims, we've seen the so-called evidence. Now let's get down to it. How do they say you can actually do this? It's all done through a specific method they call the mind silence lock.
So here are the steps right from their video. First, you just sit with your eyes closed, and you really try to focus on the feeling between the palms of your hands. Next, you bring one hand up to your forehead, kind of like a prayer pose. Then, using your index finger, you gently stimulate the skin on your forehead, trying to concentrate on any tingling or, flow of energy you might feel right at that point. So after you repeat this cycle of focusing energy a few times, the final step is just a simple test. You place your finger back on your forehead and you ask yourself two questions. First, do I have an onslaught of thoughts? And second, can I think? And if the answer to both of those questions is no, if you literally cannot manage to start a thought, then the sources say the mind silence lock is on.
But here's the thing. This isn't just being sold as some personal self-help trick. The ultimate vision they present is way, way bigger than that. It's about triggering a fundamental transformation for all of humanity.
One of the peak experiences they talk about is called stopping the world. And they don't mean that as a metaphor. It's presented as the literal collapse of your normal conditioned reality. The second that internal dialogue finally stops, the world as you've always constructed it just dissolves, and it allows you to perceive what they call raw, unfiltered energy.
And the story also builds this whole unique mythology around its founder, a man named Curran. He's described in their documents not just as a teacher, but as an otra, which is their special term for a chosen cosmic being who's here to guide humanity's next big evolutionary leap.
And all of this builds to their ultimate endgame. See, the goal isn't just personal peace of mind, it's planetary evolution. Their vision is that if enough people can learn to silence their minds, it's going to trigger a cosmic leap for the entire human race, an end to war, an end to ignorance, and the unlocking of dormant abilities we can't even really imagine today.
And that really is the central question this whole phenomenon leaves you with, isn't it? It's a pretty fascinating thought to end on. If the world we experience every single day is actually just built and held together by the constant conversation we're having inside our own heads, what new reality might be waiting for us on the other side of silence?